Alan, are you getting us? There we go. All right. I assume that we're live. My name is Ben Chandler. I'm presently chair of the State Board of Elections, Kentucky State Board of Elections. This is the April 19th, 2022 regular meeting of the State Board. And I'd like to call it to order at this time and take the roll of first the members and then others who are here on the call with us. And I'll start with you, Dwight. You're muted.
Good morning, Dwight Sears, Pulaski County member.
James.
James Lewis, retired county clerk, Leslie County.
Sherry.
Jerry Johnson,
Sherry
Franklin County. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right. Sherry and Jerry sound a lot alike. We got Jerry. Your turn, Sherry.
Good morning. This is Sherry, member Bullitt County, and apologize for not having my video on. I'm driving, so I didn't want to make everybody sick, but I am here and present.
Corey.
Morning, everyone. Corey Skolnick, member, Jefferson County.
Deanna.
Good morning, Deanna Brangers, member, Jefferson County.
Lynn.
Good morning, Lynn Lane, retired clerk from Ballard County, member.
And Mr. Secretary.
Good morning, Michael Adams, Secretary of State, non-voting member.
We've also got with us our Executive Director, Karen Sellers, our Assistant ED, Richard House. We've got Rachel Pointer, who takes care of our money, Taylor Brown, the lawyer for the outfit, and Sheila Walker, who handles the nuts and bolts. Nice to see everybody. And with that, I will accept a motion to approve the minutes of the March 22nd, 2022 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I had a correction to offer.
Yes, Mr. Secretary, awfully glad that you're watching those minutes carefully.
Thank you.
Appreciate the help.
If you'll notice, there are references in there to House Bills 564 and 574. They're backwards. The references to 574 should be 564 and vice versa. That's all I have.
Very good. Sheila, could you make those changes, please?
I will.
Thank you. With those amendments, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
A motion by
Second.
member Lewis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by member Lane. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, minutes are approved. We move on to the next item, ratification of county boards of election replacements. And that is pursuant to KRS 117.035. Karen, you want to tell us about these?
So this morning, good morning, everyone. This morning, we have 5 counties that are for ratification, and we can all go through the 5 counties and then allow the board to either take them all together, or we can do them separate for approval or for ratification. The first is Cumberland County. Their Democratic member moved out of the county. The first name on the list is Cordell Flutie and is submitted for ratification. All the appropriate paperwork has been submitted, and each of the members, or this member and each of the members I will bring up, all meet the qualifications to hold the position on their county board of elections. Harlan County is also for ratification. The Republican member there submitted a resignation. The first name on the list is Brian Jack Howard and submitted for ratification by the board. He does go by Jack Howard. And again, he meets the qualifications for the position, and the paperwork has been reviewed. McLean County is for ratification. Their Democratic member passed away. The first name on the list is Joy Yvonne Campbell and submitted for ratification. Simpson County, their Democratic member is temporarily resigning. The first name on the list is Andrew Coates and submitted for ratification by the board. Christian County is submitted for ratification. Their Republican member passed away. The first name on the list submitted is Philip Eastman. And again, each of these candidates for appointment to the County Board of Elections, Cumberland, Harlan, McLean, Simpson, and Christian, all have met the qualifications and are submitted for ratification by the board today.
Does anybody have any questions about any of these 5? Well, I've got a question, Karen. On
Okay.
Simpson County, I see that you've got that marked as temporary. Is there a provision in the statute that allows for temporary resignations? I'm not sure I understand that procedure. That's the first time I've seen something like that in my recollection.
Yes, there is. And if this member, I'm not sure, the reason that he requested a temporary resignation. I believe we did have one in the past. Maybe someone was ill, took temporary leave, and then submitted a letter back to the board and wanted to come back and continue to serve his term. So that is allowed.
So this is not, strictly speaking, of a resignation. This is a leave of absence.
More or less, yes. And we refer to it as a temporary resignation.
And when you say it's allowed by practice,
Mhm.
or is there some provision either in the statute or the regs?
I believe there is a provision. I see Sheila
Yes.
grabbing her.
Taylor,
Mr.
what would
Chairman,
that be?
If I could, it is KRS 117.035, paren 2, paren D, number 8. If an appointee is temporarily unable to act, a temporary appointee shall be named by the State Board of Elections. The temporary appointee shall serve until the original appointee notifies the State Board of Elections that he or she is able to resume his or her term.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
May I say something?
Yes, please.
On this member, he's been in and out of the hospital for the last couple of months, and they thought it was the best practice to have him temporarily resign.
Okay.
Are we replacing him with somebody? I don't see a name unless I'm overlooking it.
Yes, Andrew Coates is the person that is submitted.
Oh,
for
okay. I do see it. I'm
ratification.
sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
In that language that you read, Taylor, was the word resignation in that language?
Sorry, let me pull it back up real quick. No, it just says the temporary appointee shall be named by the state board, and he or she shall serve until the original appointee is able to resume his or her term.
Well, I would propose that we refer to it as a leave of absence rather than a resignation. It seems like when somebody resigns, they resign. So let's not refer to it as a resignation, but rather a leave of absence, if that's all right with everybody.
I agree.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve these 5 replacements?
So moved.
A motion by
Second.
Member Brangers, second by Member Johnson. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. Next, we have a review of the memorandum of agreement for HAVA Section 251 fund reimbursements to counties who purchase voting equipment. And we will need to vote on this. Karen, you want to explain this to everybody?
Again, this is going back to the previous meeting where the board had approved the memorandum of agreement template that we are using for the counties who meet the criteria under the HAVA security funding, which I believe last time we approved 40 counties. Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong. We have 5 additional counties that have submitted all of their documentation for reimbursement under the HAVA security grant that the board approved. The documentation has been reviewed. We only need approval for 5 counties, and Alan is going to screenshot those 5 counties so the board can see the dollar amount that each county will be reimbursed. The documentation is included with the contracts when we submit. That shows, yes, they have purchased the election equipment. We received the serial numbers and the manufacturer of the voting equipment purchased. We receive, most of the time, we receive the minutes from the fiscal court, and they approve the purchase of election equipment and or provide a resolution. So we have a copy of those minutes or their resolution and an invoice that has the actual purchase price. And we see that the county has submitted that payment. And Alan was going to try to screen share, but I'm not. Oh, here it comes. So as you can see, Mason, Adair, Lyon, Clark, and Pulaski. The reimbursement is $2,500 per precinct. And you will see Mason with 13 precincts. Eligibility is $32,500. Adair, 16 precincts. There's eligibility is $40,000. Lyon County has 6 precincts. Their eligibility is $15,000. Clark County has 26 precincts and their eligibility is $65,000. Pulaski County has 56 precincts and their eligibility is $140,000. So I would submit these 5 counties to the board to approve us moving forward with submitting their contracts to their fiscal court for signature. So we may begin the process of getting their reimbursement.
Karen, are the contracts for the full amount of eligibility?
Yes. Yes. So Mason County's contract will be defined as they have 13 precincts eligible for, well, and it'll say we would pay them $32,500. And okay. It defines the documentation that they submitted and met all the criteria.
If you're going to use this chart, it might not be a bad idea to make some note that it's not just eligibility, but it's the also they're using the entirety of that eligibility.
Okay, we can certainly do that.
Question.
Member Johnson?
Under Senate Bill 216, there was a change, and I think I know the answer, but just being sure, there was a change about future voting equipment that's purchased, particularly after January 2024, but there was also a reference about anything being bought after the implementation of this act. Does that by any chance have any impact on this? Doesn't look like there's an emergency clause, but I just want to be sure. Taylor or anybody?
You're muted, Karen.
Oh, sorry. So the funding that was provided in the budget bill was a total of 25 million, 12.5 million over the next 2 years. And DLG will be they will be the agency that takes care of that distribution of funding. I'm not sure what the criteria will be that's laid out and whether any of the counties that we've assisted with reimbursement will be eligible for any additional funding through that grant. I'm not sure. Is that what you're asking, Jerry?
Well, there's criteria about has to be paper ballots, has to be certain things under 216, but looks like it doesn't apply until at least the bill goes into effect, which if I'm reading it right, it doesn't have an emergency clause. So don't know any of these are impacted by that. It's just a question. So.
Well, all of these, all of the election equipment that we are purchasing meets that criteria
Okay.
that Senate Bill 216 requires
Okay.
by January 1st. I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were asking. So
Thank you very much.
Anybody else have any questions about these counties or these figures? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement for funds reimbursed to these 5 counties.
I'll move.
So moved.
That's a motion by member Sears and a second by member Lewis. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. It passes. Next item on the agenda is a request for approval of additional precinct officers pursuant to KRS 117.045 and 31 KAR 4120. That would be for the primary election in May, and we've got 2 counties at issue, Boone County and McLean County. Karen, you want to explain this to the board?
yes, sir. Boone County is requesting 1 additional officer for each of their 64 precincts on election day. And those precinct workers would be a deputy county clerk and or a Boone County sheriff deputy, whose primary duties will be to assist the opening and closing of the polls on that day. The paperwork has been submitted for board approval and is appropriate. The second is McLean County. They are requesting 2 additional precinct officers for their precinct A102. And again, they have submitted the appropriate paperwork and requesting board approval. So I'll leave it to the board to decide if you want to accept them separate or together.
Does anybody have any questions about either Boone or McLean County? Karen, does this have any impact on the requirement of party parity? Or is that not required in a circumstance like this?
Well, I believe there will still be party parity. I believe that it's just they feel they need additional help at the polls. They will still have their basic party parity. This is additional help.
Okay.
And we'll still meet that requirement.
All right. Hearing no other questions, I'll accept a motion to approve these requests.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by member Lane. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
A second by member Lewis. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. Moving on, we have a request for approval on emergency precinct officers, and this is pursuant to 117 KRS 117.045 paren 5. And those 2 counties are Nicholas and again McLean. Karen, would you like to speak to this?
So Nicholas County is requesting approval for an emergency officer in one of their precincts. It's E101. They are requesting a registered Democrat will serve as a Republican. And this is done, has been done in the past. Appropriate paperwork has been submitted and is requesting board approval. McLean County is requesting approval for an emergency officer in one precinct, different from the precinct they requested previously for additional officers, and that's D101. And that is a registered Democrat will serve as a Republican in that precinct. And again, appropriate paperwork has been submitted for board approval.
All right. Anybody have any questions about these 2 items?
I don't want to slow us down, but help me a little bit understand, because that certainly impacts party parity, I would think. So how does a Democrat serve in the place of a Republican? I don't know that I fully understand that, so I apologize.
I may refer to Richard, since this is something that Davis County has clearly had in the past and maybe faced.
I think we've been fortunate in Davis County in my prior life. We were fortunate not to have that come up too much, but a lot of counties do, in the fact that they have a slant towards one party or the other, and they struggle to find poll workers, and that they just make sure that they notify the board and notify the, I guess in a sense, the public that they're doing this, to be transparent. So it does affect party parity. But when all the poll workers get together on election day, they're nonpartisan. They're to work together in a bipartisan way to make sure the elections function properly. So I don't have any doubts that they won't do that, and I don't think anybody else should.
And Jerry, on a lighter note, I would submit that maybe this might not be the first time in Kentucky history that Democrats have behaved as Republicans.
Thank you for that add-on, and thank you for the answer.
Thank you, Richard. All in favor of these two, of approving these emergency precinct officers? Well, we need a motion, don't we? Or have we already had a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right. Motion by Member Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Lewis. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. Thank you. And now we move to the exciting part of the agenda, the financial report for Ms. Pointer. And I think, Rachel, you go ahead and start with the financial report, but I think we'll also want to talk about another additional thing, which I'll refer to as soon as you're done.
Okay. I'll keep it pretty short. We're holding pretty steady as far as all of our operating and federal expenses. There is one note. We did talk about a security funding audit that EAC had done with us, and we completed the findings in February. That means that we are going to close the HAVA Title I grant, and part of the findings was that we needed to separate and come up with a function for interest allocation. So you'll see that we have closed that HAVA Title I grant, and we have had an addition of interest corrections from EAC in March on section 1201. So that positive there is the movement of the interest to correct that finding. That's really the news this month. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions for Ms. Pointer? All right, hearing none. We have an item that we should discuss, I think, and that is, and I think, Rachel, you may be the person to speak to this, but it's an item that certainly impacts the budget, and that is a long discussed and planned move of the offices. As you all may recall, before the pandemic hit, we had been in the process of making arrangements to move the offices of the State Board of Elections to a new location. And it seems to me that a number of things have changed since that time, chief of which, of course, has been the pandemic, and that we've got some change in working arrangements, and maybe in the necessity for the amount of space that was first contemplated. So I guess maybe the best way to approach this is to ask where we are now. And I don't know if Rachel, you or Karen or whoever wants to address this.
Well, we both. So there was a plan that both we share space. Our office building shares with Registry of Election Finance and the State Board of Elections. And there has been a plan approved and sent to the Division of Real Properties. However, they have to go through their process, which I couldn't really speak to all of their processes in terms of, how they contact landlords and go from there. But the space is defined in the Capitol complex. It is shared again with the Registry of Election Finance. And I'm not sure how long ago this has been in the works. It was prior to my coming in March 2 years ago. Taylor may also, he started before I did, and I believe it was well before that, and the board may have been aware that the move was being planned. So we really, on occasion through 21, myself, sometimes John Steppen, we would just reach out to see if there was any update or movement toward getting a lease. We were in budget preparation and not sure how it would affect our biennial budget. If we did move, it's larger space, there's build out, it could affect our budget, impact our budget over the next 2 years. So there's really not a lot to update other than, we have a plan. It is a fairly large space that we would occupy, plus Registry of Election Finance as well. And
so we've been in, what you're saying is we've been in a holding pattern for upward of 2 years. And I would assume that that's largely because of the pandemic.
I would, yes. And I'm sure that it put a strain on, and again, not, defending anyone, but, we did have significant tornado damage that affects real properties and what they have to do in order to get those up and running, and not ours is kind of on a back burner when you consider the damage that they had to deal with in Western Kentucky, just as an example of what could have put some of the planning off in 21.
Member Johnson, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, just a couple of questions if I could. And first of all, I want to say I think it's highly appropriate for us to be looking for some better space for the Board of Elections. So I'm in total agreement that there's probably better space somewhere available. I guess the only couple of questions I have is one, to your point, Mr. Chairman, about the amount of space needed. I was hopeful that maybe in the interim between our next meeting, this meeting and next meeting, that maybe staff could provide us with maybe an updated needs assessment. So do we still need the space, as much space as has been identified? The space at Capitol Center, I don't know specifically, it's been years since I've been in there, but I will say it's a great geographic location, considering we have people come in from different places and including local officials and others. So it has nothing to do with where the space is, but I think that's one thing, trying to get an update on what we think the build out might cost. In some respects, building rentals may be down, but build outs may be up. If you've done any recent remodeling or anything, it's possible. I mean, it's pretty high. So looking at that. And finally, the last piece, which also has nothing to do with the other agency, but I just wonder if we can move out of the house now and maybe have our own space. I don't know whether it's of such a benefit to us to partner with another independent agency. Nothing wrong with the other agency, but I've never been in too many shared relationships, boats, cars, property, or anything else that always work out to our benefit. So it's just another question if we could get answered during that time. I do get along well with the partner I have now, so that's not a reference on my spouse, but I do what she says and I get along really well. So, but in this case, I think it's worthy of at least getting the opinion of staff. So, thank you.
Basically, what I hear you saying is that we have sort of had this agreement in place. I'm not even sure whether it I guess it amounts to an agreement. Have we signed a contract or I guess a preliminary contract with the new space that we've been looking at?
Not to my knowledge. I have not seen any, and Rachel would have been a party to that as well. So
we have
not
Rachel, you don't know whether we don't have any contractual commitment.
So I don't have anything that has been signed for a leasing agreement for a new space. I have talked to OSD when we were preparing biennial budget. This was a huge deal to figure out because we knew that we were going to have more space. What's the increase in rent? What's the increase in utilities? Which utilities are hard to plan for, but we could give an estimate. It's also going to be a undertaking for the movement of our servers and technical equipment. Normally COT will move our laptops, but they do not have third-party liability insurance to move servers and larger equipment. So we would have to outsource that, which would be an additional charge to do that as well. So there's a lot of underlying charges that we maybe don't think about associated with the move, but because we don't have an official walkthrough, we haven't had like a set amount of anything. We haven't heard from finance facilities. It's very hard to budget what we're looking at. I mean, the basic state rate is about $10 a square foot, but we have no idea how far off from that we are going to be. And that's not including any type of upgrades that are going. That's just the basic, leasing rate. So whatever we do to the building, we will pay for in some way, but I don't know what those costs.
Well, let me ask you this, and I guess this gets down to part of the nub of the matter, and that is, do we need as much space as we anticipated needing 2 years ago? Because I know that some things have changed in light of the pandemic. And if we have less space, I would assume we then pay less money, and that, of course, helps our budget.
I mean, yes.
Go ahead, Rachel.
The space that we have configured, the floor plan that we have configured with the building we're talking about, that also contains several large shared spaces with KREF. So, if we do go our own way and we get our own house, then there would be less shared spaces. So we would have less space automatically for some of that.
Exactly. And then that would reduce, again, would be a reduction in the amount of square feet. And a good point, and I bring up, I appreciate Member Johnson and you, Chairman Chandler, on, an opportunity for us to sit down and maybe assess our needs based on, what's happened in the last couple of years and how the working environment has changed for SBE in terms of in-house or off-site.
Well, I wonder if that's maybe a good idea for you all to do that, given the changes and, given the possibility, as Member Johnson said, it may be a good idea to look at a space of our own. But I guess I would guess that this would warrant some kind of reassessment. The situation is everybody all right with that? Does anybody have any comment or any question relative to that?
It's Sherry. I just have one comment, in reference to maybe assessing if in the future is, more enhanced security for our folks that serve at the state board. Just with, the future and a lot of public interaction around our elections, I would like to see a little bit more security surrounding where our people are going to be serving at the state board.
Member Whitehouse, I think that is a wonderful suggestion, and I think everybody can relate to that after seeing what we have seen in other places in the country. And I think one of the reasons we haven't had more trouble here in Kentucky, quite frankly, is we haven't had close elections. If you get a close election, I think it's a very different matter in terms of security. So we certainly want to protect our people, and we want everybody to feel safe. So Karen, that very much, in my opinion, ought to be part of any reassessment.
Thank you, and agree. Absolutely agree.
Does anybody else have any comments, any thoughts? You all think this is a good idea, bad idea to reassess?
I think reassessing can't hurt, even if we come back to the same conclusion. At least we've looked at all of our options.
All right.
I agree with Deanna too, because this may be the perfect solution. Absolutely may be. And like I say, location wise, I love where they're talking about locating, because I think it really presents a lot of opportunity for staff and for other people coming in. It's just a different day, and it's been 2 years, and we're not getting ready to break ground tomorrow. It just, it seems like to me, let the staff maybe look at it, compare what we're paying. At least we'll have a budgetary impact, or have an idea what it'll be, and maybe report back and make a recommendation. And I think Sherry's points can be overlooked sometime, but making sure staff is safe is a key component of that. And I suspect a lot of the newer space in state government probably makes provision for that now. So.
Well, that's great. In that case, do you think you all can do a reassessment of this before the next meeting at enough time, or do you need more time than that?
I believe we can begin to work on it, and Rachel's, can pull some numbers, and we can make some determination. Taylor, Richard will all, come together, and IT will probably include Tom Watson as, a big part of our IT team. And I think we can probably bring that back to the board at the next meeting.
Well, maybe we should designate a couple of board members for you all to liaise with, sort of as a subcommittee, to help work on this. So, do anybody want to volunteer for that job?
How about Sherry with her IT experience and security experience? Seems like a really good.
Well, I also
want to volunteer her, but
I can't see Sherry, but I think I saw Dwight put his hand
I'll
up.
volunteer. I'll work with Sherry.
Hooray!
Yeah, that'll be yes, and I'm.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah,
That's wonderful. All right, we've got
Great.
Dwight Sears and Sherry Whitehouse as the designated members to sort of be in charge of this from a board perspective. And Dwight and Sherry have worked together before on subcommittees, and I think they get along right well. So perfect.
Thank you. I think this will be good.
All right, let's move on to the next item, and that's going to be you, Taylor, the administrative regulations. You want to take that up?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I emailed you all this packet yesterday. If it's not in your official board book, we'll get it combined and to be part of the board book. Make sure that happens. But there's 5 new forms. So you all have already approved the meat of the regulation that this is attached to. It's 5 5026 or 31 KAR 5026. But we kind of made the call with 564 working its way through the legislature that maybe we should wait to see if there was anything else that came out of 564 that was going to require new forms, new admin regs. So that's kind of what this is. The first form is the 76, and we worked with Jason and some of the other clerks here and learned that there already is out there. The term ballot accountability means something different to the clerks. So we just changed the title of that one to reconciliation. It's the same form that was approved before otherwise. The 77, we've used this one before too, except that it used to say missing or discrepant signature. This is the signature cure letter that goes out to people that have requested mail-in absentee ballots, submitted it back, had a problem with their signature. Under the new law, a missing signature cannot be cured, only a discrepant signature. So we just erased all the verbiage about a missing signature being able to be cured. Otherwise, it's the exact same form. The next three are all new. The 78, and we added that to the, like I said, the 526. And that's the daily absentee drop box verification sheet. And the law now requires that when the absentee drop boxes are emptied, that there's documentation that a Democrat and a Republican will sign off. And this allows them to note the date, time, number of ballots they collected, sign off on it. And then if they have any additional comments, there's a space for that as well. The 79 is also a new requirement. It's the daily voting machine verification sheet. And this will come into play during the in-person voting as opposed to the last form applying to absentee voting. Basically, we're looking to see what the counts on the machines are every day at the beginning, every day at the end. And again, you'll have the Democrat and Republicans sign off on this both at the beginning and at the end. So another just record keeping form. They'll turn all these into the county clerk who hold on to them after the election for the 22 months that are required. The final form is the 44E. It should look familiar. It's modeled off of our existing absentee ballot requests. And it really is the same form we've been using, except it now has the 9 through 18 listed there are the specific excuses that are allowed by statute following 564 for the excused in-person absentee ballot. So voter will fill it out just as they always have, pick a reason, sign under the penalty of perjury that whatever reason they're selecting does apply to them, and that will go to the county clerk as well. And so the final thing in the binder that I sent you is just the language for the regs that births these forms. So welcome to take any questions anybody might have
All
about
right.
the forms or the language.
Thank you for your work on these forms, Taylor. Does anybody, you all have had a chance, hopefully, to see the forms. Does anybody have any questions related to them? Well, now I guess I see that we have Clerk Denney with us. I haven't had a chance to introduce you yet. This is Jason Denney, County Clerk of Anderson County, President of the County Clerks Association. And since you have your hand up, please.
Sorry for the tardiness today getting on the link. Had some pressing issues here at the office. I do want to reiterate what Taylor just said. The County Clerks Association have been invited to be part of drafting these forms based on statute. we've been brought into the conversation. We do very much appreciate that. That we do realize the need for these, especially the daily checkoff and the ballot accountability sheet that we use at our drop boxes. So we appreciate the standardization of these forms. County clerks right now are using, I would just say, makeshift forms, because we're already intaking ballots. We're all have created, some have created their own, but the uniformity is welcome. So, and thank them. I will thank the board. I will thank the staff. Tom and his entire staff have been doing Zoom trainings based on election night reporting, getting ready to do that, based on the portal. Very informative, and they've done a great job as we navigate these new rules. As we know, the 564 was signed in last week into law, along with State Board and several county clerks. We presented training to County Clerks Association last Friday. And of course, it was a long day and a lot of questions. We also have a full day of election training this coming Thursday, which will be 10X on the e-poll books. Secretary of State's office will be there to talk. Heather is coming there for sure. And then SBE will wrap up the day. This will probably be the last in-person training that we have until after the election. So wish us luck, pray for us, pray for the whole process, that we are as successful as we were in 2020, as we navigate even more changes. So I feel that we have the staff and the backing to do it. It's just like, I think with all of us, many of us are so shorthanded in our government offices right now that it's putting a lot of stress and strain on all aspects of the election process.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments on these forms? Obviously, one of the central reasons, if not the central reason, is to get some uniformity, some standardization, which is always welcome. Do we need to approve these forms, Taylor?
Chairman Chandler, I would ask for a vote on the forms. And while I can, I just special thanks to Clerk Denney and Clerk Tabitha Clemens on those forms. The two of you all were very helpful in drafting these.
Just another example of the tremendous teamwork that we've had in a very, very difficult few years for elections, and just awfully proud of the teamwork that everybody has shown across the board. So thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the forms?
So moved.
A motion by Member Brangers. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Skolnick. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. Now, our next item on the agenda, and maybe you've already done it, Jason, but you're up, and you gave us a little bit about what you're up to, and I don't know, do you have anything else to add?
I pretty much did it. The discussions last Friday, when Taylor was at the table with me, that's where we come up with a lot of ideas for those forms in that meeting. I know he had been in the courtroom all week long. I will say, I know Karen, Richard, and Taylor, and that the whole staff there have been as busy as we are on the local level. And they took, of course, the time. And then I was at SBE again on, I guess, Monday. And that's when we pretty much wrapped up what we thought the forms needed to look like. So thank you all for that. We can get these in place and get them out to the clerks for immediate use. I pretty much covered everything else I needed to say. Thank you all.
Well, thank you. And again, thanks to all of your colleagues, the 120 county clerks in Kentucky who just make the whole system work. And we're very grateful to all of the work that you all put in, and without you, we'd be nowhere. So thank you very much. Mr. Secretary, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief, just a couple of things. First, I want to address a topic of speculation that I've seen on social media. What I have in these plastic solo cups, I just want to assure everybody, it's just Big K citrus drop. It is nothing more interesting than that. Second, I just want to offer a brief.
That little interlude makes me very happy that I'm not on social media.
Second, I want to say that we had a successful session for Kentucky elections. I won't go through the measures that we've discussed in prior meetings, but they are all enacted. I don't think most voters will see a big change other than longer hours to vote, and in fact, more days to vote. I think the centerpiece certainly for all of us was House Bill 564, which clarifies and extends voting hours during the early voting days that are now law in Kentucky. It also added 6 days of in-person absentee for those who aren't able to vote, either on election day or those 3 early voting days. Now you've got 6 more days to go vote. For the most part, that'll be at the clerk's office, although some counties have other places as well. You'll want to check with your county clerk or check the board's website for those specifics. But this was a good session for our elections. As was referenced earlier, an additional $25 million was budgeted. This was done in bipartisan fashion. The governor proposed it in his budget. The legislature agreed to that. We've done a pretty good job the last couple of years, I think, in helping the counties to upgrade. First, we got federal funds. I think it was $12 million at the end of 2019. Then we got CARES dollars, and we gave the counties a big share of that as well to upgrade their equipment. And so now we have additional state funding coming for that purpose. The board got an increase in its own budget to be able to help us with our own responsibilities. That was good news as well. Finally, just very recently, I got a notification as the chief election official from the Election Assistance Commission that we are eligible to apply for an additional $1 million. This is not CARES Act money. This is new HAVA dollars that were appropriated earlier this year by Congress as part of its regular budget process. So yesterday, Karen and Richard and Rachel came over and sat down with me and Jenny Scutchfield to talk about how best to utilize the funds. I've got to send a letter to EAC this week, essentially offering a plan for how we'd use those dollars. I'm pretty confident that we'll get them. My viewpoint is that we've certainly done a lot to assist the counties in upgrading their equipment. I'm real proud of that. I do think that this $1 million really should stay with the board. I think we do have some needs within the board, maintenance of our voter registration system, identifying security issues and so forth. I do think this $1 million would be best utilized by the board for the board's own purposes. And so we've all agreed to that. We're drafting a letter here that we'll, of course, share with you all before it goes to Washington. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Anybody have any questions of Secretary Adams? Hearing none, we will move on to Karen and the Executive Director's report.
Again, I will, many things have already been discussed.
Karen, can
yes.
I interrupt you just for a second?
Sure.
Dwight has pointed out to me that maybe we didn't officially approve the financial report. So maybe we ought to do that. And I apologize for the oversight. If nobody has any other questions, we've got a motion to approve it by Member Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Lane. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Very good. Thank you. Thank you guys for cleaning up after me. All right, Karen. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. One, last meeting I reported on redistricting. Richard, Sheila, the IT team continued to work through that process. I believe that We are at an end, a conclusion of that, Richard, I believe. But I did want to just shout out to that group of all the work that they did toward getting us to that end after the bill was passed. It was a significant, a lot of time by all of IT, Richard, Sheila particularly, but they did a great job. Again, Jason mentioned a couple of things. KCCA, we're always happy and making ourselves available to them. We work together to get the training on both the laws because, you know, only 10 counties had elections that used House Bill 574 that went into law last June 29th. So we had 110 counties that not only had to become accustomed and trained under 574, but as well the new legislation that the governor signed off the day before we had our training. So that cleanup legislation is now in progress. The clerks have 28 days now until the primary, and it's just amazing to me all the work that they've done, and just appreciate them. And hopefully SBE continues to answer all their questions and provide as much training in the next 28 days as we possibly can to ensure we all have safe, secure elections in Kentucky. There's been a risk limiting audit. We had a meeting, an initial meeting to start that process. I may let Taylor or Richard maybe just weigh in a little bit on that first meeting, just for a few minutes to update the board on where we are in that process.
All right, we had our first initial meeting last Wednesday with Jennifer Morrell, who's the expert on the risk limiting audits. She kind of took care of that meeting with us, and it was kind of an introduction session. And to just refresh the board, Fayette, Kenton, Henderson, Madison, Anderson, and Johnson will be the participants in that pilot program. And everyone was in attendance for that one, including the vendors and a couple of people from the Secretary of State's office. So we appreciate everybody's participation in that. And we kind of got into the opening discussions and dialogue about some goals of building a system that is just right for Kentucky, because there are a few of these out there that are tailored towards their states, and we'll tailor this one towards ours. We're going to meet again next Wednesday, April 27th, and that's going to be kind of our meeting for educating us all on risk limiting audits 101. So we'll get a lot of details of that. And then we'll break for May because of the primary, and then pick it back up in June, where we'll start putting together what kind of risk limiting audit procedure that we want to have for Kentucky, and then building operating procedures and guidance for that going forward. And then our intention is to perform the pilot program after November. So that's where we are right now, and we'll constantly keep you updated as we go through the process. Taylor, you have anything to add to that?
I would just add, I'm now remembering that we didn't get the slide deck out of her, Ms. Morell's PowerPoint that we wanted to show you, and maybe we can get it for next time. But I believe the number is only around a dozen states that have either implemented RLAs or are in the process, like we are, of implementing. So we're kind of trailblazing here, and we want to make sure that we get it right, as opposed to just thrown together as I'm not on social media, but I'm sure Secretary Adams has seen a smattering of people calling for things with the RLAs on social media. But since we are, just trailblazing, like I said, developing something brand new for Kentucky, we want to make sure we get it right.
Very good. Karen?
So a couple of other pieces of legislation that came through the legislature. was Senate Bill 216 is now law. One of the areas of 216 is the clerk's implementation of video surveillance that will need to have video surveillance when the polls close beginning November 8th on the general election day. So SBE has every intention of doing what we can to help the clerks in that area. It will be a cost to each of the counties. I'm not sure where SBE can come into play there as well, but hopefully they will allow us to help them in any of the implementation of SBE, of Senate Bill 216 that affects the Clerks Association.
Karen or Jason, have there been any assessments of how much that's going to cost and whether money is there to pay for it?
No, not for sure, Karen. I don't know on your end, but I think I'm just gonna be honest. I've been so overwhelmed with all the other that haven't even taken a poll to see how many. And Karen would probably know more on how many are going to be able to utilize this 25 million for voting machines, and to see if there's going to be any money even left over to apply to other election needs. I don't know that the 25 million will totally in result cover voting machines yet. I don't know that we know that.
And to that end, you know, depending on what the criteria and how it's defined, may not include video surveillance. It may be more election equipment, and I'm not sure the definition that they will use. It's, you know, not coming through us. So that'll be something maybe we can work toward to help.
Karen, I do have a working with a couple of vendors on a statewide level to give us just ideas of what types of equipment are out there, you know, from the smallest idea, what will get a clerk compliant versus what types of large scale equipment there is out there, not for this, the vendor to sell anything yet. And I want this presentation at conference to help throw out different means. You know, some have thought about have already thrown out a deer camera, have thrown out Ring doorbells. We don't know yet. You know, I don't know enough about these technologies to say that they'll back up for 30 days and hold that technology. And of course, you wouldn't want the old school deer cameras that have a little SD card inside the camera that somebody could destroy. It has to be uploaded at least to a cloud, I would think. So I think we're early on this discussion. I'm going to do some research. I want to have somebody come and speak at conference on different ideas for clerks down the road. And, you know, depends on budgets, you know. I hope most counties can afford to buy some sort of camera system with the cloud, have it installed and be done. But those that might have to install something themselves need to still be compliant. So we're going to work with those clerks and help them.
Well, I've got a couple of deer cameras if any of the clerks need to borrow. I'll talk to my clerk, Sandy Jones, and see if she needs them.
We're thinking outside the box. Anything that can meet compliance to help these clerks out, whatever it is.
Well, I think maybe it would be a good idea, Karen, if you all would in conjunction with Jason, if you guys could do an assessment sooner rather than later about what is going to be needed and whether the resources are there to be able to provide the kind of video security that the legislature is requiring. If we find out that we don't have the resources, I mean, it could very well be that we will need to apply for a necessary government appropriation of some sort. We don't want a mandate, of course, that's been unfunded, and we don't want to be in non-compliance with the law. So
and we certainly want to make sure. Oh, excuse me.
I was just going to say, I would assume that if we could have some kind of an analysis along those lines soon, that would be useful. The sooner the better, because obviously we've got a primary election coming up here in less than a month. And then we've got the general election not that far down the road.
Exactly. And I think Jason, he's mentioned the conference would be a good time for us to maybe try to work on an assessment once we kind of hear and maybe know a little more. I know the clerks are overwhelmed these next 28 days, but as soon as we get through this primary, we can start to address some of that. I think that's a great idea, Chairman. And we're right here ready to help the clerks with that. So.
All right. Well, I would encourage you guys you and Jason to organize something like that on a timely basis if you can.
And I will extend an invitation if any of you board members want to come to our Owensboro conference, get with Karen. We would love to have you. It'd be a great time and opportunity to mingle and get to know you all better and build on our relationship.
Remind us of the dates, Jason.
I've got to look here. June the 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd. Our big day is actually the 21st. Is the full day, and more than welcome to have you. Just to get with Karen and let us know that you'll be in attendance.
You scheduled a full day on the longest day of the year.
Great.
All right. Very good. Karen, do you have anything else?
Well, I was just going to mention a couple of other things. There's another House bill that went through, 618 is now law. And I believe we mentioned at the last meeting, Taylor worked on language where we're going to be moving forward on a certification process for e-poll books. The law will take effect July 1. And we will have a certification process in place by September 1, as mandated by the new law. And we are going to continue to work with the work group that Chairman Chandler established. I think not the meeting, maybe the February meeting, we established a work group. We've had one meeting, and now that we have the law in place, we'll probably start having more regular meetings so we can meet that September 1st deadline. And at the next meeting, we'll probably have an update on that. Taylor, do you or Richard have anything to add to that? And then I was just going to mention a couple of things. Heavy lifting by the clerks from now until May 17th, and we really appreciate, and we're here for them. Still doing some training. Yesterday, the voter registration was the last day for voter registration, 4 o'clock yesterday, local time. However, if cards are received and postmarked by April 18th, they will be processed for voters for the May 17th election. Portal closes May 3rd at midnight or 11:59. We have, of course, the 6 days of in-person excused absentee, May 4th, 5th, 6th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, I believe are the dates. And then early voting starts May 12th, 13th, 14th. That's 3 days of no excuse in-person absentee voting. And of course, May 17th is primary election day. So as Secretary Adams said, more days for voting for the people of Kentucky. And I'll just close by thanking everyone for all of their support through this process of getting us to the May 17th primary this year.
Very good. Thank you, Karen. Does anybody have any questions for Karen? All right, we're going to go into executive session here in a minute. Before that, is there any other business to bring up to the board? Anybody have any extra item that's not on the agenda that they'd like to bring forward? All right, hearing none, we need to go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61810, paren 1, paren C. That would be for pending litigation, and also 61:810, which is for security. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Motion by member Lewis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by member Brangers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're going into we're going into executive session, and we will return to live session when that ends, and we will confirm the next meeting date when we come back. But right now we have no other business to